The corporate gifting industry has grown into a multi-billion-dollar space and is showing no signs of slowing down. And that growth matters for all of us in the branded merch space. It signals a shift in how companies, our clients, think about building relationships, standing out, and creating memorable experiences. Today, I'm chatting with Mika Kayt from Outgage. Outgage is reimagining how direct mail and corporate gifting work by merging the physical and the digital. They take a marketing first approach, helping brands create personalized, interactive campaigns, and importantly, track real time ROI, which is vitally important for buyers and marketing departments and something all distributors should aspire to provide. Here's the deal. Nearly 95% of companies send gifts to their own customers at least once a year. But we're seeing gifting evolve from a feel good gesture into a highly strategic channel. When it's done thoughtfully and backed by data, gifting becomes a powerful way to drive engagement, move deals forward, and deepen loyalty. So that's what we're talking about today. How to move from just sending stuff to running gifting programs that actually deliver results. Mika, thank you so much. Before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what Outgage does in the corporate gifting space?
Sure. So my background, short-lived marketing, biz dev, some sales, also was part of a family startup. So really did everything, both marketing conferences and actual livestock operations, but that's a totally different story. And in terms of what Outgage does, we're an engagement platform that uses gifting as an engagement channel. So primarily focused on marketing, but absolutely see use cases for other departments, sales, HR, etc.
Okay, so a marketing professional at a brand somewhere decides that they want to use gifting or branded merch as some sort of activation. That's what Outgage helps with.
Yes, and more. And I know that you and I have spoken about this tons of times, and we're probably going to get to it later on, but we talked about the whole concept of phygital. So I would say, the engagement that happens to use gifting, it could include branded merchandise, it could include e-gifts, it could include donations, it could include a value add from the company itself. But what we're really good at is closing the loop with customizable, actionable, and measurable landing pages. Our proprietary landing page builder, fully customizable in real time. So really just helpful for quick turnover campaigns where those landing pages are triggered or can trigger gift send. So very specific for the use case of engagement through gifting, and we measure all of it. We also have integrations available for marketing automation platforms and other product CRMs. Our landing pages include integration, so think of any call to action possible. Watch a video, RSVP to a webinar, set up, schedule a meeting with your rep's calendar link, etc. And that in turn just gives us a lot of data to be helpful with shedding light in a very dark world of once just sending gifts and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that resonates with me because I think as an industry, we've done a pretty good job trying to get some research on, how many impressions a certain product might get. But when it comes to that really granular, okay, I know that, the mug I gave out went to 100 people, but how many of them and who and when did they convert on whatever my intended goal was? Let's back up just a bit and discuss the big picture. We've seen corporate gifting grow into a massive industry, and it feels like every brand is leaning into it. From your perspective at Outgage, why has gifting become such a hot channel for marketers, and what's changed in the last few years?
First of all, I think that gifting was always a hot channel for marketers. So let's unpack this, right? I don't think we're making anything up. I think that for forever, gifting is entrenched in human engagements, and marketers truly believe in the power of gifting, not only because they see it work, and sometimes they didn't even have the data to prove that, but because marketers and again, others in the companies are really just trying to build relationships with people and resonate with them. And when you think about gifting in our day-to-day life, like, I don't know, I was raised when you get a gift at your birthday, you send a thank you note. So there's some sort of need to reciprocate, and there's a lot of psychology behind that and a lot of researches that have been done in that field. And also it just feels more personal and thoughtful, and it's something that stays with that recipient. So it's sort of a memorabilia that keeps on staying there physically versus something that's, lost in the digital pile of things. If you send them a message, it's lost. If you gave them a gift that they actually like and have use for it, or has some sort of message tied to it that they were like, oh, that's a clever thought, that stays on their desk or is in their kitchen, or they gave to their kids and had that emotional tie, then you won some of your audience over a little bit at the least with a gift. Now we need to prove that that works, and this is where we come in and we can talk about what that looks like. But that's why marketers likely use it intuitively.
Yeah, that's great. I know that Outgage does e-gifts, and that's cool. But in my own experience, not only am I, trying to sell branded merch because that's where the margin is, but
Yeah.
I think back to like the last time we moved and I got a housewarming gift from my realtor, and it was a laser etched cast iron skillet. Super great. And we still have it. And every time I use it, I see that brand represented, and I get all of the same warm vibes that I got when I received it, because now I'm using it in my daily life years later. If my realtor had given me an Amazon gift card, to be honest, I would have loaded it into my account and I probably even wouldn't have noticed when I used it. So definitely agree that intuitively we understand that gifts can bring that sort of return. When a gift lands on someone's desk, whether it's a prospect or a client or even an employee, what kind of impact do you think that has? And what have you seen in terms of how recipients respond to well timed gifts?
So that's a great question. I would add some more criteria to it. So I don't think it's just well timed. I think it's also how do we build the correct workflow. So if you think about a marketing campaign and HR campaign, really, and again, I know that you and I spoke about this a lot of times, but it's not the get. You said it before, it's not the gift, it's the outcome, right? And what we're trying to do is find out the engagement. So let's work back from that. It's a strategy. It's not only when do we send the gift and what the gift is, it's the whole workflow around it and how do we capitalize on that. And it might be how do we set that up? When do we send it? What happened before we sent it? Was it post an event? Was it post an email? Was it the first touch point? And what happened afterwards? Because if you're sending a gift, it's a lot of companies, and I'll just use this as a PSA, like sending a gift on its own is not necessarily like, yeah, we did ABM. It's more it's more like use a gift as a tactic and part of a longer strategy. And it's a shame to send a gift and then not capitalize on that later. I'll give an example. So we had a company that was intrigued by us at an event we were at. We gave out locked jars of cookies, and all of them were plain vanilla besides one red velvet one. And the whole message was stand out with Outgage. And in order to unlock your engagement in cookies, set up a time with us for after the event. And I think we gave them the code anyways, but they set up time with us at the event. And we had a company that was with us in pipeline for forever. It wasn't the right time for them. Then 3 years later, or 2 years later, because I don't know if actually 3 years had passed, but 2 years later, the company totally remembered us, reached it back out to us. So very memorable in terms of the experience, but we also followed up with them. So I think you could always capitalize on that and just say, hey, you remember us? We were the ones with the locked gift, because they really remembered that. They took pictures, they sent it to their, colleagues. So that's what I mean by, don't use it as just a standalone. In terms of criteria, because now we have data around that world, we're smart enough to tell most companies, and we'll talk about this in a second, but we also can give that information to the distributors. We have big data around what workflows make sense for the right goals and audiences, what budgets are being spent for different audiences, for different goals. When does it make sense to do a physical gift versus an e-gift? Because I'm with you, physical gifts definitely leave a lasting impression. But maybe if you're doing a global webinar and you're trying to entice people to come, an e-gift sort of makes sense as long as it's easy to distribute it. And that's where specific landing page features come in, like global gift card choices based on where you're at. So I hope that answers your question, but maybe I missed something.
No, that's amazing. And you've really focused on the strategic part of it. I'm curious, do you find that most marketing teams have that strategy pinned down, or do you expect to be able to or need to guide them through some of that and be creative on the strategic workflow part of it?
Yeah, I think that at this point in age, any gifting distributor who wants to last and win more deals or win them at all, I think that it is expected to be a partner. And not because marketers are not creative, they might even come with their own ideas, but they don't have the data from all the other campaigns that you guys have. There's a lot of steps to be had. They're not familiar with the logistics and all of the nuts and bolts that it takes to put together a gifting campaign. That's not their bread and butter. This is one of many things that they're doing. So I think the expectation is that the distributor or the, SaaS solution or whoever it is that they're using is helpful to give some sort of preemptive strategic help. So preemptive creative, predictive creative, I like to call it, because in a sense, they're going to spend money that they need to prove works in order to spend more money with you. How can you help that be more successful off the bat versus just helping, versus letting them, test it out and wait if you've already seen specific things help. So it's the gift itself because I'm not sure if we already mentioned it because we talked about it also before, but we're not trying to sell the hats, we're trying to sell the outcomes, right? So it's not about what we're sending. The what comes sort of at the end because it's why are we sending that? How is that used as a physical piece of content that will be useful and memorable enough and tie back to what you're trying to get through to them as a message that just happens to stand out through a gift better than it would through, any digital engagement.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and this is a kind of an off the cuff question, but the needs of marketers are pretty specific, and they might come to us wanting input on this strategic approach. Is there like a set of terms, or is there a book or maybe a conversation we could have with AI to help kind of get into the same mindset that the marketer is in?
First of all, absolutely. If we're not using the technology that fell on all of our heads from the sky this past couple of years, then we're definitely moving slower. So specifically, Outgage is implementing AI to take all the data that we already have and be helpful in getting creative quicker and analyzing the data, all of that. Even if you don't have an Outgage, I would definitely say be ready to use properly. By the way, there's also a privacy issue. So you can't just be like, hey, this and this company, da 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 da. But you can give it criteria to get your creative juices going based on the operational constraints that that the customer doesn't know yet. The
Mm.
customer doesn't know necessarily to consider that there will be defects in the gifts or that there will be delays. So you need to give the correct time frame. The idea at the end of the day, and from what I've noticed, and I think that I would also appreciate as an end user of anything, is how much confidence can we give the end user and how much, not only conviction, but, well, yeah, I guess conviction can we give them that this is going to work in the best way because we know better. And they might have amazing ideas, but they don't know that that's going to take longer. It has, you might not want to send out chocolate in July for so many reasons. So this is where you, as a distributor and expert in the field, need to put all the puzzle pieces together for them. And you could definitely utilize AI to get you in the right track since you have all the criteria at hand and you can literally feed that.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Outgage stands out because it's combining, physical gifting with these digital engagements like the landing pages and then the tracking. For folks who haven't used a platform like Outgage, in a nutshell, how does it work and what does a typical campaign look like?
Um, so in a nutshell, I would say it works like any other marketing campaign, only add logistics, so there is a complexity to it, but I think that that's where the magic happens, and that's why distributors will always be needed in this world if they know to combine it back to the digital. So an example could also be found. I'll just take an example that's actually shown on our current website. So if you go to outgage.co, you'll see this running. And I love this example for a few reasons. But if you go through on our website, there are like 3 case studies on it. All of the campaigns that you'll see there and many, many more have seen over 35% engagement, which I think is mind blowing and amazing. If you look at other B2B marketing efforts like email, that might get 2.5% engagement. So, just a testimony to how this works, and we are able to prove it. What you'll see in this case study, an example, is Zendesk was trying to do a product expansion campaign. So we're used throughout the whole marketing funnel. It could be for awareness, it could be for conversion, it could be for retention, it could be for expansion, it could be for referrals. This is an expansion play. So if you had one of their products, Eric, let's say you had support, but you weren't familiar with the rest of their suite of products like Guide, Talk, Chat, Help, what they did was send a low-cost mailer to the places of business. Mind you, this was also before COVID, but companies are still doing it. So it might have a little bit less hit rates, but there might be an added step here, and we can talk through that as well. But they sent out coasters that had the different products written on them. They looked like targets, and it had an explanation about about the product. So literally in your face, an awareness play about the different products. It came in a Zendesk branded box, a postcard that was mass personalized. It would have said something like, "Hey, Eric, in order to hit your customer support targets with Zendesk and receive a drone from us, please go to this landing page." And when you did, the landing page continued the same experience. And I think that that's so important. It's not like another landing page where it's an Outgage landing page that says choose a gift or set up a meeting with a different company. It's Zendesk branded and colored and all of it and messaged. And what I love about this example is that they gave you 2 options. And why this is important is because they qualified the lead. So you could either download a white paper and learn more or set up a meeting. Or, you could have set up a meeting or downloaded a white paper. And what I mean by that is they didn't push you to just set up a meeting to get a second gift. If you would have done either of the call to actions, you would have received the Zendesk branded drone and they would have seen full funnel visibility. So shipping and tracking, ETA and delivery, who went into the landing page at what time from what browser, who took what call to action. And because we also integrate into the marketing automation platforms, even easier to do the automated follow-ups later. So whoever set up a meeting, cool, that went to sales, qualified lead. whoever didn't got follow-ups either because they didn't go into the landing page, they did go into the landing page and didn't take an action, or they, downloaded a white paper and wanted to learn more, and then they were put into the relevant nurture campaigns. So from this tactic alone, they saw about 46% engagement, meaning 46% of the hundreds of people who got the first gift went into the landing page, took an action, and received the gift. And they got residual engagement throughout the year. Like, we saw it because it would have come in, we were streamlining it. And that's where this doesn't have to be a one-off tactic. They can capitalize on it more if they really know how to use this as part of the journey versus the journey. So I think that that's a really cool case study that shows what a campaign like this could look like, but it could also be other things like the locked gift that I told you about, or e-gifts for webinars. Really, I think that the gift piece becomes evident once you understand what the goal is and what the message is. It's just figuring out what the right content piece is eventually. And I think that that's where the distributors come into play, because they know which products are better quality. They know which products people tend to like, but you also want to be creative in the sense that, especially for marketing, you don't want to do what everybody else is doing. You want to stand out. If it's HR, then it might be different. It might be like, what's the best thing to give to employees this year, which is cool because, anyways, the different criteria for different departments. And that's where the distributor really needs to step up, come into play. And I think that that's what's going to win at the end of the day. Technology is going to be table stakes. If you want to continue, if you want to grow, if you want to win the deals, you need to prove the data. You have to give them the quick turnover campaigns, which are super hard in the world of logistics. So how can you get them started, and how do they close the loop internally? They need to prove to their bosses that this works. Otherwise, you don't get more budget either. They're not going to come to you because, the digital data is there and the physical one is not, unless you put it there. And then the distributors who are going to win are the ones that are going to give the creative, give the service, give the support, stand by their word, give the confidence of when something's going to go out and it actually arrived in time, and take off the headache, because people are expecting to worry less about things in this world of technology.
Yeah, I love that Zendesk case study because there's so many opportunities to delight the recipient. So, opportunity number one, they get something in the mail with their name on it. That is, maybe it's just a subset of people, but I don't think so. I think people like getting mail with their name on it. And so that's like touch point number one. Then you're referring them, or you're directing them to this digital destination, the landing page, where that Zendesk brand experience continues. They take whatever action they're going to take, and a few days later get a very cool package in the mail. And as you mentioned, the interaction with Zendesk continues because Outgage is integrated with the client's CRM, and from there you can automatically create tasks for follow-up. You can push in some metrics, that sort of thing. When I think about the totality of that campaign, the product was just a very small part of it. And the value added was the creativity, was the technology and the integrations. And I don't know what the average conversion or customer value is for Zendesk, but I imagine with 46% conversion rate, it wouldn't take a whole lot of turnovers to justify the budget.
So yes, you're absolutely right. And let's take it a step further. First of all, lots of data to show that personalization helps. And you could mass personalize both the print, like we said at the beginning here. They could have also personalized the landing pages, which is
Mhm.
super cool, because then that continues. So like, we have that option as well. I don't remember if in this case they did or didn't. They had to have personalized it to a certain extent, because when you came into your landing page, you had your rep's Calendly link set up there. You had your account manager. So So it had to have been personalized to a certain extent. And that was definitely helpful. In terms of ROI, we have gotten testimonies from companies that they've seen 12x ROI on campaigns with Outgage annually. And that's only because they were able to see that in their systems. It was that easy for them to see because we were sending back actions taken, and they could see what pipeline actually came from these campaigns versus, asking the sales reps to like follow up and, hey, Eric, saw you got a gift from us. This is really giving a better user experience, not only for the distributor to now give to their customers, not only for the marketers themselves, but also for the end user, because now I'm not getting that pushy sales call. You're giving me the choice and the control, which made it for an overall better experience. And yeah, there was a kicker with another gift, which intrigued me. But at the end of the day, I'll either buy into the value or I won't. And now Zendesk knows quicker to identify if I'm there or not.
That has to create such a sticky relationship with the end client, meaning a distributor or somebody putting these sorts of campaigns together that have that provable ROI, especially something like 12x. Like that's got to be kind of a mainstay in the end client's budget, I would imagine. I want to ask you what's working right now in terms of what companies are actually sending out, and how do you help clients pick the right items specifically for their audience?
Yeah. I love this question. I love this question because we touched upon it a little bit, not so long ago, in our conversation. I would say this is where creativity shines because you don't want to be the umpteenth company that sent the same gift. Like, I'm gonna, throw away the 10th mug I received right now. I don't care about your branded t-shirt. So there are things that work less for sure. In terms of what works more, what works more is very tied to who the persona is that you're sending to. It's very tied to the messaging that you're trying to convey. And at the end of the day, this is where the distributor comes into play to say, and this is how you're going to send something that's actually unique and not send exactly the same thing. Now, again, this is a little bit different for HR. It might be a little bit different in the one-to-one sense for sales, because then you're just like, oh, you like whiskey, I'll send you whiskey. Fine. Those are the on-demand things. The person, that's different. When we're talking about the one to few, the one to many with marketers, you want to stand out. There are things that are nice to have, like if you can integrate a really yummy, something into it, cool, but you'll always want to have that memorable keepsake as well for it to stay there. But I would say the type of gift is more based on the criteria that makes sense for the audience versus an actual specific gift. I'm not going to tell you, hey, send them a, rocket book, because rocket books are cool. Maybe they already have 10 rocket books and it doesn't make sense for your message. So that's, I'll never say send just X. You know what I mean?
Mika, our audience is primarily promotional product distributorships. For those of them who are looking to expand into strategic gifting or to partner on these kinds of campaigns, where should they start? And what role do they play in the experience?
I think they're going to play the biggest role in the experience. So, first of all, I'll start by saying what I believe in is, and what I believe in for Outgage is that we're democratizing technology in this industry. I do think that engagement needs to be a standard. I think that proving ROI and data is the standard request by the end user. Is everybody there yet? No, I don't think that we are. And we have to be, we should be, because whoever is not going to be there Sort of like we said, Blockbuster versus Netflix type of situation. And I think it's coming quicker than people realize. Like the technology is already there. Products were all privy to very similar products. So even if somebody has some sort of unique, you know, batch or inventory of unique gifts, I bet you I can find 10 very similar or comparable gifts to that, right? So I think it's a question of now who is going to be the best partner for those companies. I also know to say that a lot of companies are looking to, if it comes to procurement, they're going to try to consolidate vendors. So even if you're being used for swag and swag stores, who's being used for the sales use cases, who's being used for the marketing use cases, being used in, other teams as well, event teams, all of that. And if you can prove to have the capabilities to service as many departments and use cases as possible, then you're probably winning. And I think that that's going to be the race we're seeing, and why I say distributors are going to play the biggest part. They are the biggest part already. Like distributors are most of the market. If they're going to be the ones who are going to be smart enough to bring technology into it, will likely win over more of the market. You have the relationships already. You need to know how to keep them, expand within them, and get to more. And getting new customers without proof, not that easy. Keeping your old customers based on your relationships, depending on who's staying, who's going to other companies, great. But what do they have to prove internally? And are you giving them are you answering all of their gifting needs? Because procurement doesn't understand necessarily, unless they're really, explained to by all of the departments, why you're needed here versus the other gifting vendor that's being used somewhere else. They're looking at gifting as gifting for the most part, from what I understand. And I apologize to procurement out there if that's wrong, or if you feel that that's wrong, but that's from most of my experiences until now. And in that case, you want to be the one that currently holds the relationship and knows to innovate quickly.
Yeah, at the very least, we want to give our buyers something to show, maybe somebody in procurement who is asking for that kind of spend to be justified.
Yep.
Mika, thank you for sharing your insights and for giving us a look behind the scenes at how strategic measurable gifting is changing. I wanted to give you a moment to touch on any points that I may have missed or give you the last word before we do our outro.
Oh, I appreciate that. First of all, I feel like we touched on so much, probably more than I expected. Um, I'll just reiterate that I think that the time is now, and I think that it's the distributor's market to win or lose. And this better than others. We love to play the small part of being that technological outsourcer that could help them get there quickly, since it takes a long time to get this piece right. And I will ask you something, Eric, because we talked about this a while back. What do you think the distributor's role is, and how should they go about it? Because I know that some distributors are trying to build things in-house. Some are not even thinking about technology. Like, what are your thoughts from the other side?
Well, I think that we are seeing a moment for the industry. I think that distributors need to be more agency minded and a little bit more sophisticated with how they go to market and how they serve savvy marketers, especially in enterprise where measurable ROI and integrations with their CRMs and other tools is almost mandatory at this point.
Yeah.
I have observed distributors kind of build their own software. I think that they are very brave. And if they haven't already, experience this, they're going to come to the realization that building our own software kind of changes what kind of business we are at a fundamental level. At that point, things like SOC 2 compliance becomes our burden to sort
Right.
out. There's, you're hiring completely different employees. You're hiring, full stack developers at this point. And that might take away your own budget from developing your sales org or developing your operations team. And so I would hesitate to get into the software business if I was a distributor and find the right kind of channel partner, perhaps like Outgage, to help me meet the needs that my customers are asking me for.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with you. Very, very brave. Lots of hidden costs. Always takes longer than you think it'll take. So hopefully, yeah, we could be a partner to many, many others to really bring this to market quicker.
Brilliant. Aviators, if you're already offering gifting solutions or just thinking about it, I hope that our conversation today has given you some new ways to think about the value that you're bringing to your clients beyond just the products. If you're interested in learning more about Outgage, visit them at outgage, outgage.co. And thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.